Imagine dedicating years of your life to supporting a family member, only to be cast out and branded a loser. In today's story, a devoted sibling learns the hard way about entitlement, betrayal, and the strength it takes to walk away. This isn't just a tale about family drama, it's about reclaiming dignity and rediscovering self-worth. Stay with us as we unravel this emotional journey. Christmas had always held a special place in my heart, a time overflowing with joy, cherished family moments, and beloved traditions that we had cultivated over the years. This year, I had truly gone above and beyond in my preparations. Gifts were not only purchased well in advance but also meticulously wrapped with care. Each one thoughtfully tailored to suit the personality and preferences of its recipient. My brother Jacob, his wife Kelly, their children, and of course, my parents were all included on my extensive list of people to surprise with carefully selected presents. I even took the initiative to buy extra gifts, just in case unexpected visitors decided to drop by and join in on the festivities. Everything was meticulously planned and seemed absolutely perfect, or so I thought. Until the moment my mother opened the door and uttered the words that shattered my holiday spirit, "We don't want you here this year." Initially, I stood there in shock, convinced that it must be some sort of cruel joke. But then I heard Jacob's voice, cutting through the air from behind her, "This is no place for losers." His words struck me with the force of a punch to the gut, leaving me reeling. I stood frozen in place, gift still clutched tightly in my hands, staring in disbelief at the scene unfolding before me. My father, usually a pillar of support, avoided making eye contact, his gaze fixed firmly on the floor as if he could will himself to disappear. My mother, though visibly uneasy and clearly uncomfortable with the situation, didn't speak up to defend me. Meanwhile, Jacob lounged on the couch, scrolling through his phone as if he were completely indifferent to the emotional turmoil he had just unleashed. A tumultuous wave of emotions crashed over me: humiliation, rage, and profound confusion. Yet, despite the chaos of feelings swirling within me, I somehow managed to maintain my composure. "Fine," I replied, forcing a nod as I turned away and walked back to my car, my heart heavy with disappointment. But as I sat in the driveway, staring at the carefully wrapped gifts piled beside me, I realized I couldn't just let it go. The memories of years filled with generosity and unwavering support for Jacob and his family flooded my mind, each one more vivid than the last. I had been there for them through thick and thin, paying for his children's tuition, providing school supplies, and even covering their mortgage when they faced tough times. And now, here I was, feeling utterly rejected and excluded. All because I hadn't done enough in their eyes? It was a bitter pill to swallow, and the weight of their dismissal felt unbearable. Determined to get to the bottom of what had gone wrong, I made my way back to the house, my mind racing with confusion and frustration. As I approached, I noticed my parents standing by the doorway, their hushed tones suggesting they were deep in discussion about something critical. Meanwhile, Jacob was sprawled out on the couch, seemingly unconcerned and pretending that nothing was amiss. Feeling a surge of urgency, I stepped inside and confronted them directly. "What's going on here?" I demanded, my voice tinged with disbelief and irritation. "Why am I suddenly not welcome at Christmas?" Jacob, however, didn't even bother to look up from his relaxed position. Instead, he responded dismissively, "You've been slacking off this year. The kids barely got anything from you compared to before." I was taken aback, utterly stunned by his words. "What are you talking about? I've got more gifts for your kids sitting in my car right now than anyone else does combined." My voice rose, frustration spilling over at the blatant unfairness of it all. Jacob shrugged, finally making eye contact with me, which only heightened my agitation. "Yeah, but last year, you were far more generous. This year? It feels like you don't even care. It's just embarrassing for us to have to explain this." Just then, my mother awkwardly chimed in, trying to defuse the situation, "But you just bought a new car. You found money for that, didn't you?" I couldn't wrap my head around her logic. "The car is on credit," I retorted, my patience wearing thin as I struggled to maintain my composure. "And even if it wasn't, what on earth does buying a car have to do with my obligation to support Jacob's kids?" Jacob leaned back with a smug expression, clearly enjoying the moment. "Look. You make the most money out of all of us. Families are supposed to help each other out." His sense of entitlement was absolutely staggering to me. "So, let me get this straight. Just because I've been generous in the past, I'm now bound to be that way forever? And if I don't want to play along with your demands, I'm somehow a loser?" Jacob shrugged once more, clearly unfazed. "If the shoe fits, wear it." That was enough for me. I turned my gaze to my parents, frustration boiling over. "You know what? You're right. I don't belong in this situation anymore." Then, directing my anger toward Jacob, I added with finality, "Enjoy your Christmas. This loser is officially done financing your life and catering to your expectations." As I drove home, my fingers gripped the steering wheel tightly, and I found myself caught in a relentless loop, replaying the confrontation in my mind over and over again. Each moment felt incredibly vivid, as if I were reliving the entire exchange in real time. I couldn't help but reflect on all the countless times I had come to Jacob's rescue, bailing him out of difficult situations that seemed insurmountable for him. I remembered the times I had paid his rent when he was on the brink of eviction, covering his childcare expenses when he was struggling to make ends meet, and stepping in repeatedly whenever he found himself short on bills. In those moments of assistance, I truly believed that I was helping out of love for his children, who deserved a stable environment, not out of any sense of obligation or expectation of reward. It felt genuinely fulfilling to support them, and I thought I was doing the right thing by being there for them. However, somewhere along the way, it became painfully clear that Jacob had stopped being grateful for my assistance and had begun to feel a growing sense of entitlement instead. As if my help was something he had come to expect rather than appreciate. This situation was not merely about the holidays or the significance of Christmas. It represented a much larger pattern of behavior that I had inadvertently allowed to develop over the years. Jacob had taken my generosity for granted, and unfortunately, my parents had enabled him in this regard, reinforcing his belief that he could rely on others without any consideration for their sacrifices or struggles. They had always been supportive of his choices, no matter how questionable they were, which only served to strengthen his conviction that he could lean on others without feeling any need to reciprocate or show gratitude. The final straw for me came when I realized I was being excluded from the one time of year that was meant for family togetherness and connection. A time that should have been filled with warmth and love. It was a season when we should all come together, share joy, and support one another through thick and thin. Yet I found myself on the outside looking in, feeling like a stranger in my own family. This exclusion felt like a culmination of everything that had been building up over time. And it made me question not only my relationship with Jacob but also the dynamics within our family as a whole, leading me to wonder if my efforts had been in vain and whether I was truly valued or simply taken for granted. I woke up the next morning with a profound sense of newfound clarity that felt almost overwhelming in its intensity. It was as if a light had been switched on in my mind, illuminating the path I needed to take. It became abundantly clear to me that it was finally time to break the cycle that had been dragging me down for far too long. I had been caught in a pattern that was not only exhausting but also detrimental to my own well-being. I realized that I could no longer provide financial support for Jacob, no matter how difficult that decision might be. I had to stop compensating for his inefficiencies and allowing him to lean on me as a crutch. This decision wasn't easy at all, in fact. It weighed heavily on my heart and mind. I understood that it would likely strain my relationship with him, create tension with his children, and possibly even have repercussions on my relationship with my parents. Yet, I reached a critical point where I could no longer accept being treated as an ATM, merely a source of money. Instead of being valued as a family member deserving of respect and consideration. As the days passed by in a steady stream, I found myself hearing nothing from them, which only reinforced my resolve to stick to my decision. Each day of silence felt like a confirmation that I was on the right path, even though it was difficult to endure. New Year's Eve came and went in complete silence, marking a significant moment in my life that I would not soon forget. It was the first time I had spent the holidays alone. And while the experience was undeniably lonely and somewhat melancholic, it was also surprisingly liberating in ways I had not anticipated. I finally felt the incredible freedom of prioritizing my own well-being and focusing on what I genuinely needed instead of constantly catering to the needs and demands of others. For the very first time, I was taking a stand for myself, asserting my own worth, and it felt empowering to put my needs first. No longer would I allow myself to be pulled into a cycle of dependency that left me feeling drained, unappreciated, and resentful. I was reclaiming my life, and with each passing day, I felt stronger and more resolute in my decision to prioritize my own happiness and peace of mind. In the middle of January, I received a text message from Kelly that completely took me by surprise and left me momentarily stunned. The message was simple yet profound, stating, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry." As I continued reading, she elaborated, explaining, "I don't agree with what happened. Jacob won't hear it from me, but I thought you should know." Her words felt like a lifeline in a turbulent sea of emotions. As I processed her message, a complex mix of emotions washed over me. On one hand, it was genuinely comforting to see my feelings acknowledged and validated in some way. It felt like a small but significant relief to know that at least one person in the family recognized that what had transpired was entirely unacceptable and deeply hurtful. It was a small victory in a situation that had felt overwhelmingly isolating. On the other hand, I couldn't shake off the frustration that lingered due to her silence during the confrontation itself. Her absence of support in that critical moment spoke volumes and left me feeling even more alone. I couldn't help but feel that her lack of action when it mattered most had been just as significant as her later message of regret. With those conflicting thoughts swirling in my mind, I decided to respond thoughtfully, writing, "I appreciate it, Kelly, but this isn't something I can just move on from." To my surprise, she did not press the matter further or attempt to persuade me to feel differently about the entire situation. It was quite unusual for her to hold back in such a way. And while her lack of follow-up was unexpected, I found that her apology did plant a small seed of hope in my heart. Perhaps there might be a chance that not everyone in our family shared Jacob's sense of entitlement after all. The idea that someone could see things from my perspective brought a glimmer of reassurance amidst the tension that had been brewing for quite some time. It suggested that perhaps there was a way forward, a possibility for understanding that could ease the burden of the conflict and open the door to healing. The thought that I was not entirely alone in my feelings gave me a sense of comfort I hadn't anticipated, and it made me reflect on the dynamics of our family in a new light. In February, Jacob surprised me by showing up at my front door out of the blue, completely catching me off guard without any prior notice. "We need to talk," he asserted emphatically, pushing past me and entering my home before I could even form a proper response or collect my scattered thoughts. "You need to stop acting this way and start contributing again. Just like you used to in the past." As I absorbed his words, a laugh escaped me, almost involuntarily. "Helping out? You mean supporting your lifestyle financially?" I thought I was very clear when I said I'm done with that kind of arrangement, once and for all. Jacob's expression twisted further into one of frustration. His brow furrowed as if trying to comprehend my point of view. "You're the one who has the money to spare. Do you have any idea just how challenging life has become for us since you decided to act like this, distancing yourself from your responsibilities and obligations? The piercing nature of his words incited a deep-seated anger within me, much like a sharp thorn embedded in my side that refused to be ignored. You're a grown man now, Jacob. You have a wife and children who depend on you for support. After pausing for effect, I continued, if you require more financial assistance, then it's high time that you go out and earn it. It's not my responsibility to bail you out of your financial dilemmas or rescue you from the mess you found yourself in. He looked at me, his gaze a volatile mix of anger and disbelief. You've always been there for us in the past, though. Why would you choose to be so completely selfish now, when we truly need your help? Selfish? I retorted, my voice rising in irritation as I felt the tension in the air thicken. Let's have an honest discussion about what selfish really means. You deceived our parents, turning their opinions against me. And now you dare to stand in front of me and demand even more from me? This is where I draw the line, Jacob. We're finished here. At that point, he fumed and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him with a force that echoed in the empty space we had shared just moments before. In that instant, I genuinely believed that this would mark the end of our confrontation. That the words exchanged would result in a definitive conclusion. However, I was entirely mistaken in that assumption. I was most definitely wrong about the finality of the situation we found ourselves in. This experience taught me the importance of boundaries. Generosity is a gift, not an obligation. When people start treating it as the latter, it's time to reevaluate the relationship. Jacob's entitlement was a wake-up call, but it also allowed me to reclaim my sense of self-worth. For anyone watching, remember, it's okay to say no. It's okay to prioritize yourself. And it's okay to walk away from relationships that no longer serve you. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more tales of resilience, lessons, and unexpected twists. Until next time, remember to stand firm in your worth.